behind True Niagen, and I suggest you check out their information for yourself. To learn more about the research, science, and to order your supply of True Niagen supplement, visit drdrew.com/TrueNiagen and use the code DREW at checkout for a special discount on orders of 3 bottles or more. So that's my website, drdrew.com/TRUNIAGEN, and use the code DREW today.
Hey everyone, it's a dose of Dr. Drew.
It is. Susan, you want to comment about that sound issue
Nope.
or just move on?
I make the same mistake every time.
All right. You guys hear me okay? I was just checking on the chat. That is all good.
But we got the plug for drdrew.com/TrueNiagen.com.
Yeah, True Niagen's a good product. I stand behind it. I'm on it, and I freak out when I run out.
I told you I was testing it, but I guess, never mind.
I am thoroughly convinced by the story of NAD while you guys all kind of pile in here.
It's one of those days, right?
Yeah, it is one of those days. In any event, I hear strange feedback, I got to say. But the NAD story is still being figured out, particularly as it pertains to the infusions we use for the alcoholics in recovery and that sort of thing. Sound is low, they're saying. Oh, somebody says very good sound.
You know why it's low? Because Caleb was on it yesterday and he has everything loud. There we go.
How about this? Hey now, better? So let me move on to talk
Welcome to Tuesday.
We're going to have a very interesting guest and fan in just a minute, but let me go through the COVID stuff. You guys are already commenting on the panic porn that's out there. Marissa, I didn't see your question yesterday, so they still can hardly hear me, so that's interesting.
It's coming up. I'm going to go.
Marissa, you're going to have to put that question right here.
It takes a minute for it to get through.
Dustin is saying the audio is great on Facebook. So on
I turned it up.
Periscope,
there's
it's
a
not
little,
so good.
There's a little delay, so it'll take a second.
Okay. So as I was saying, I see some of you commenting already on the panic porn that's circulating around. There is one thing that Dr. Fauci said that I agree with, and then you should listen you got to always listen super carefully to him when he talks. He chooses what to say, and he chooses his words very carefully. He did not say, they're saying it's better, Susan.
Okay, Drew.
He did not say we are in for trouble in the next 2 weeks. He said the next 2 weeks are critical to be sure we don't get into trouble. And if you remember back when we had our first explosive phase of the COVID outbreak, remember those first few weeks when he kept saying, we don't know, the virus is in charge, there's a 3-week lag, we'll be able to tell soon. Same kind of phenomenon going on here now. Now, the way the virus is behaving is, of course, far different than it was at the initial phases of this, the so-called explosive phase. That doesn't mean there couldn't be small regions of little bombs going off, right? Regions that haven't been exposed previously might suddenly get a little outbreak of some type. As we said 2 months ago, regional epidemiology is going to be the name of the game for a while. And I think the same applies here too now. We seem to be able to chase these things down. We're doing a better job at testing. People are being more diligent about coming for testing. And if you notice, what has happened is we have all the people that were at those demonstrations. Several of the demonstrations actually had testing sites at the demonstration. So they captured a ton of cases. And then people were very good about, after going to demonstrations, going and get tested. And lo and behold, we have picked up a bunch of young people who were exposed in the demonstrations. Unfortunately, in states like New York, it's illegal to ask whether somebody was at a demonstration, which is the most non-scientific, bizarre frickin' thing I've ever heard of. But okay, let's assume that if you're young and you are part of a cohort, you got it at the demonstration. I think it's a good bet. And a few are ending up in the hospital, right? And so we're seeing hospitalizations go up in California, a little bit in Florida, a little bit in some other states, Texas, but you're not seeing deaths go up significantly. Now, that could change in the next couple of weeks, right? Because the death is a lagging indicator. But my bet is that, and this has been my prediction, and my prediction may be wrong, my prediction has been we're going to see a tick up, but not an explosion, not an outbreak.
Mostly young people.
Mostly young people, unless, now let's be careful. And now, if they wear their masks and they don't go visit their grandparents, this thing should settle right down. Yeah, things should settle down.
They're sick parents.
Someone's asking, what about Arizona? Man is asking about Arizona. It's not as bad as the press is making it sound. Like, for instance, let me just go to Arizona here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the University of Washington data updated yet, which is driving me insane, I have to tell you. So we don't have their Maybe I need to hang up. Maybe
You know what?
I need to
I have something to interject.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
read the thing that they wrote about Fauci today.
Mhm.
They said that the Oxford trial showed dexamethasone
Yes, dexamethasone is very
improves
effective.
survival in severely ill
Correct.
patients, and
That
that's
is
a good,
correct.
very valuable.
Yes, so we're using dexamethasone like crazy. I was using solumedrol on patients early in the course because it just made sense to me. We have nothing targeted really.
The headline wasn't too panic porny.
Except some no, there's nothing panic porn about it. Except some IL-6 inhibitors and things like that. And otherwise, we had steroids. And dexamethasone is kind of a unique steroid, is working. So to tell you what's going on in Arizona, somebody asked what's happening to what the data I have. We have gone from essentially 15 to 20 case deaths a day to, let me get to Arizona here, 15 to 20 cases a day. Sorry, let me get to Arizona.
Okay, something else they mentioned that applies to Arizona. He said early in the outbreak, Fauci noted that hot weather tends to slow lung infections, and President Trump predicted the pandemic would go away as they rose. Any hopes that the U.S. contagions abating now appear slim. A widely watched indicator RO suggests that transmission is speeding up even as the death rate from the infection starts.
Stop it. Don't read it.
No,
read it.
but what he was saying is it doesn't look like the hot weather is going to kill the virus as well as they thought. That's what Fauci said.
Which that observation has two sides to it. I talked to Dr. Charles Murray at the University of Washington, who said, look, if it just stays in a steady state and doesn't spike up and doesn't go away completely, that's actually the most desirable. That's the most desirable. That's when it's least likely to have a second spike. So we just sort of slowly infect people and we deal with it and we infect
And then
people and
get
we deal with
the,
it. And then we get the vaccine.
the Moderna
Exactly.
vaccine.
Exactly. So I'm looking at the Arizona deaths. It's 20, 30, 40. Hold on.
It's going up.
20. Hang on. 1, 3,
Wow.
40. So nothing yet. Don't let them panic you.
Well,
really.
More people are getting it, but less people are dying.
Which is also true. But I mean, we could get into trouble. I'm not saying we couldn't get into trouble. We sure could.
And we're also
but we
testing
are.
more
But
people.
don't. There. You know, when they already start talking about grim milestones and staggering numbers, shut off your brain.
I hear a giggle in the background.
Yes, I'm going to welcome our guest in just a second. But I am a mask advocate. I'm a mask maven. I understand. I understand how people relate to public health messages. And when they have overstated something and you've gone with it and you found out maybe it wasn't as bad as they said it was going to be, you stop listening. And particularly when people want you to do something on your body, like wear a condom or wear a mask, you start rebelling. I get it. I've seen it. I get it. I've been dealing with the public and public health for a long time. But please wear the mask. Back to the 1918 flu, it was clear that stopped the epidemic. It's really clear. And back then, if you look at all the chatter amongst the physicians at the time, they were like, well, no, we can't get anybody to wear these damn things. I mean, impossible to get people to wear it sufficiently. And in one city, they finally did it, and it helped. But here, we're so happy not to be in lockdown that we should be willing to wear the damn masks as our security to keep us from having to do anything more aggressive. Who knows what the government might? Yeah, I'm a mask maniac, and I like that. That's it. I'm a mask maniac. And why? Who knows what they'll ask us to do next? So you got to be really. They're asking us to do so much and have asked us to do so much. I mean, look, have you seen the list of requirements that every business has to go through just to open up so we can walk in? I mean, we're doing already a lot. Don't draw the line at the mask. That's not the place to draw the line. I get it. Yes, Andrew, I got the email about Dr. Zelenko, and I sent it to Susan.
I know, and I reached out. He hasn't responded yet. I swear.
So we have the new email, and you use that, the Andrew email I sent you about 2 hours ago?
I got the email address for Dr. Zelenko, and I sent an email yesterday.
Oh, well, there's a new one.
There is?
Yes,
okay,
I just
that's
sent
why
you.
he hasn't responded.
Yes, that is why.
Oh.
Suno doesn't
Okay,
mind the
I have
mask, and I say good. We'll look really quickly at you guys. Any other questions?
Oh, it's his assistant's email. Okay. I got it.
Hi, guys.
We were supposed to have Mike Catherwood today, but his daughter is going back to school and he had to take care of things. So he wasn't able to join us today.
Now, Jeff B says, we are nowhere close to flattening the curve yet. What are you talking about? The curve was destroyed in California. It is flattened in every state except maybe Arizona, where it's kind of zooming around a little bit. What are you talking about? What are you talking about when you say something like that? I'd love to know. Or maybe maybe Jeff, you're somewhere else where don't have access to the data. When will Florida peak? All right, let me just, again, I don't have updated University of Washington data,
So
but
weird.
I know he's 10 days, 11 days out. That's what took last time. Florida, again, very flat, 30 deaths a day, maybe up to 50 now. The bed utilization, there's no peak in these flat curves. They did it. They flattened the curve. Now, there is a concern that out in October, we'll start to see a rebuilding of the virulence of the virus as the weather changes. That is possible. That is a real possibility. And we'll start to see the behavior change of the virus maybe in September. So, you stay tuned. We'll all be ringside seat for that one. Well, let me bring in my guest. My guest is Monica Ricci. She is a personal professional development coach, and she's a fan of the show. We're a fan of hers. And we welcomed her in because she has some really interesting stuff to share. Thank you for coming, Monica.
Thank you for having me. Very exciting to be here.
So I think you were cheerleading quite a bit when we had my aging brain and names.
Vinny.
Kate Shanahan.
And Kate,
in here.
yes.
Yes, and
yes.
and Vinny, of course, but
Yeah.
Kate specifically, when we were talking about seed oils, and you're like, yes, and bring this doctor in and that doctor. And we've been compiling your list, but then we thought, let's bring Monica in and let her talk about this stuff because you've been doing some extraordinary stuff for yourself. And do you coach other people as well?
I have to be really careful what I say about this because I have people who private message me all the time and say, hey, can you give me your opinion on this? Or what do you think about this? I am not a trainer. I am not a doctor. I am not an official health coach. What I am an expert in is what's worked for me. And I am happy to share what has worked for me. Now,
well, let's stop let's drill right there because each of our physiologies are so really quite different. And so do you have any sort of threshold for saying, maybe this isn't working for you, or maybe something about your body habitus you can sort of predict isn't going to work? How do you look at that?
Well, when someone reaches out to me, and it is shocking to me that people actually do reach out to me, frankly, but I'm glad they do because it means that they trust me to, steer them in the right direction. I always ask a couple pieces of information. I ask, number one, how old are you? How tall are you? What do you weigh now? What has your journey been? Have you lost weight already? Where are you in your journey? And what are you eating? And from that, I can look at and make an educated guess because I have been not only transforming my body and my health for the last year, but I've been studying and reading like a mad woman.
So your journey is only a year old?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And how about the training part of it? Because you've got a bunch of training videos up that show some pretty rigorous core stuff going on.
Should we show the before and after?
But let's just answer that question. Is that only been a year of training too, or you've been a long-term training?
No, I've never trained before last year.
Really? Wow. Okay. Because most people, they kind of know if they like training or not. You know what I mean? I need it. I have to do it. To be sort of okay emotionally and, I don't know, spiritually. But I've known that since I was 15. And you just came to it. Is that right?
I did. Yeah. It was an accident, kind of. And
do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I will. I was frustrated. Every change starts with someone being annoyed or frustrated or angry or something, right? That is that impetus to kind of change. And I was annoyed because I felt soft and out of shape, and I was tired, and I saw a challenge on Facebook, and it was a 12-day, 12-minute workout challenge. And I thought, what loser can't do 12 minutes? Like, I am like I'm kind of a loser, but I can do 12 minutes.
Even I can do it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
And that's how it started. It was a very specific, very prescriptive program. 12 minutes, 12 days. Then you had to post your picture and in the private Facebook group. So that structure was what created the habit for me. And on day 13, I was so proud of myself that I said, I am not giving this up. And I just kept going. I was like Forrest Gump in that movie where he just ran to the edge of Alabama and then he just kept running. I was Forrest Gump, and I haven't quit since.
That's great. And so you just sort of shared, and then you're reading a lot on diet and whatnot, and you're sharing some of that with people that are interested.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so say it again so people are clear. You don't have professional training in this. Mm-hmm. You're just a citizen of social media, and you've offered your experience and what you've learned.
And she does great PR for our show.
Well, I know that.
Well, and that's my part-time job.
But
I love that about you.
But the stuff I've seen you advocating on behalf of, and some of the videos you've put up and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is all. It's hard to argue with. Now, it may not work for everybody, but there's a growing consensus about pretty much everything you're representing out there, and there's a lot of good science behind it. So let's show the before and after pictures for people that want to know what Monica's been doing.
Oops, sorry about the sound.
Yeah, and you see this pretty advanced, and particularly if you're the work she's doing at the bar. There's a lot of stuff upside down there too, but I hanging ab and core work is not for the faint of heart.
I couldn't do it,
Monica.
I can barely hang that.
When I started this, it's interesting that you say that because it's like any journey you're on. As you get better, you are able to do more difficult things, whether it's mentally or physically. And so it's good to be reminded of where you were. And that's why we take videos and that's why we take photos. So we can gauge our progress and we can keep ourselves motivated. And when I started, I couldn't dead hang from that bar. When you put your arms up and you just hang with all your weight, I couldn't dead hang for 10 seconds. I thought my arms were going to pull off. Mm-hmm. And that was a year ago. So, it's incredible. The human body is incredible when you feed it well and you treat it well.
So protein, let's talk about that. That's something that I can tell you, I work with a lot of elderly patients medically, and I'm chanting, and particularly as you age, protein is a really important nutritional ingredient, and people aren't focused on it.
No, and it's shocking to me. So when we mentioned that, a lot of people have been reaching out to me, private message on Twitter and Facebook, and I gather all that information. And the question I ask is, what are you eating? And they give a rundown. In 100% of the time, of the cases, everyone is underproteined, chronically underproteined. And it's because we don't know. We're not told about the importance of what to eat. We're told what not to eat. Most of it is bullshit. But, I just said that. Sorry.
It's all right.
But
that's okay.
But we're not told of how important it is to get adequate protein. And the really sad part is if you ask the RDA, look at the RDA guidelines. Yeah. The RDA for protein is half of what we actually need. That's right. The RDA might have, they'll say, here's protein you should eat if you would like to just barely stay alive.
Correct. And again, those were sort of how to avoid nutritional deficiencies, not how to optimize your nutrition, right? Very different question. And it should, if nothing else about the COVID experience, people be careful with experts building models. Right? Beware an expert building a model. If you want to try to derive some science, look at peer-reviewed journal articles and read them and make sure they've been reproduced many, many times. And that will give you some information. But models, particularly models created by the government, you should be highly skeptical. Whether it's models, and I'm sorry, but models about climate, not to say they're wrong, I'm just saying the time frame and the seriousness and all that needs to be examined carefully. Viral outbreaks, treatments of various types, you name secondhand smoke. I mean, you name it. when the government starts building models and making predictions, be very, very, very skeptical. Not to say they're wrong, but just don't go, oh, that's what I must do then. So the RDA has been under-proteinizing us for quite some time. Yep.
It is. And you know what makes me wonder? And I just connected this dot in my mind, and it's a non-scientific dot to connect, but it makes me wonder what role a chronically under-proteined society, what role that plays in our rise of chronic disease and specifically insulin related disease.
Right. And at the same time, what has gone on at the same time? There's two things that have gone on at the same time as we brought the protein down.
Carbs go up.
Corn syrup up.
Yep.
Seed oil's up.
Seed oil's up.
Seed oil, corn syrup, protein down. Man, if I had to write a recipe for obesity, that's kind of how I'd write it.
Yeah, and don't forget about whole grains. Heart healthy,
right?
Whole grains.
Yeah.
It absolutely. You're right. It's a recipe, and all we have to do is look at when did the food pyramid, the government guidelines food pyramid start, and what has our rate of societal chronic disease done over those years. I mean, I know again, non-scientific, anecdotal, but common sense. When people go to their doctors and their doctors say, eat heart healthy whole grains, make sure you get 150 grams of carbs a day, make sure you go low fat and don't eat a lot of meat. And then those people come back and the outcomes are worse than they were before when they came in.
So
I don't know.
Yeah, we're getting into the Dr. David Feldman and the Vinnie Tortorich territory here. I think we should refer people to their stuff because they go at it very, and Peter Attia, the doctor, he interviews Dr. Feldman, and it's a great conversation. So there's a lot of people questioning the science, very smart people, really trying to get the science right here. Just know that these sweeping generalities, and by the way, and we're trying to, I've always been trying to figure out what's right for my physiology, and it's I'm a Russian peasant. It's different. I was geared up for genetically, clearly for harsh environment, die young, lots of proteins for strength so you can lift and, do the fields or whatever we had to do. Different than somebody who, as genetics is say a leaner environment where running and duration and the duration of life was longer, or there's just so many different genetic inputs. Let's say that. And so this all has to be sort of, what's on my mind right now, by the way, is there was a great article that just came out about COVID, and that there are 6 genes now associated with bad outcomes with COVID. And I was looking at them, and some of them are blood type genes. Lo and behold, type O, you're a little less likely to get the virus. Type A, you're a little more likely to get it and get complications. And the cytokine system is all tied into this. It just reminded me how different our physiologies are. And so just take this all as a frame that you then try to really dial in for your particular biology, which is hard to do. Which is why we sometimes need coaches that are open to that kind of thing. But anyway, that's all.
Sometimes we need to try things, different things. I was on high fat before I went to high protein. I was on high fat. And high fat works for a lot of people. People get into ketosis, and people can lose a tremendous amount of weight on a high fat diet. However, when you have high fat in the absence of protein, which is what I was doing, I had stalled. I was completely stalled. I had lost like 10 or 12 pounds, and I was frustrated and stalled. And that was when I began learning about protein.
Now the chat is alight with a couple of things. They want to see the before and after again, Susan.
Okay.
Of course they do.
And then you can answer this if you wish. They want to know your age.
Okay.
And they were asking what was the other?
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's the before.
And when I met you and you helped me set up my Zoom, you were like, I just worked out, and you came in and you go, this COVID-19 thing has been great. I've been very focused on working out. I guess it's been a good time for a lot of people.
Yeah, I didn't alter my routine at all during the COVID. And I know I'm not saying that because, look how great I am. I'm just saying that I just was in my routine, and that goes to that mindset thing we talked about earlier, which I love. That's such a great subject about, the difference between motivation, inspiration, and commitment. And we can hit on that in a little bit if you
go ahead.
Like it.
Let's do that. Do it now.
And that's huge. The COVID thing, people say all the time, there's 1,000 reasons why you can't do something. I can't do this because of this. I blah, 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 whatever. And the thing is, when you really decide and commit that you want to do something, you'll find a way to do it. And that's where I'm training every day, whether COVID or not COVID. I'm training every day. I'm sticking to my program. I'm not eating Doritos and cupcakes and whatnot. I'm not saying if you're doing it to comfort yourself that you're a bad person. I'm saying for me that, because I'm committed. And so that's commitment. That's from inside of me. But then there's motivation, which is external. That comes from other people, where you hear somebody talk to you and they pump you up and they're like, you can do this, you're awesome, and you're like, yes, I can, and then you're motivated, but then the next day they're not there for you, and so you're not motivated.
Right.
And so when you rely on motivation, this is something really important I want people to understand for anything in life. When you rely on motivation, you're putting your success in the hands of an external factor in the form of other people's opinions and thoughts. That's really vital to understand, because that makes you a puppet on a string, and that makes you not in control of your destiny. So you got to figure out commitment and inspiration, which both come from inside of you, by tapping into people who are doing what you want to do, who have done it successfully, and who are willing to help you.
Right. I was going to say, it's very much like recovery. Rain is talking about his excessive use of alcohol, and I would say this is pertinent for him, that it's other people, at least particularly when you're in the most fragile part of this process, that keep you going, that keep you structured, that keep reminding you, and keep you, they're in your corner like a fighter. And eventually you'll do that for somebody else, and that's also very rewarding. Now that you're doing that kind of coaching, you find it, I bet it's sort of the next level to motivation, isn't it?
It really is. And it's so interesting, because I just put together a new keynote presentation on this very topic of transformation and how you can create it using a system. Because when I looked at why did this work for me, because okay, to answer your question, I'm just going to say in front of the world and everybody, someone did ask my age, and I think it's relevant because there are some things you come to in time. I wouldn't have done this in my 30s. And I say that, and obviously I didn't do it in my 40s. So now we were getting closer, don't you? I'm turning 55.
That's good for you. I'm 61.
Really? Yeah, you're a stud too.
I mean, it's a miracle that we can do this now. I mean, to me, as a physician, this is a testament to modern nutrition and society and medicine and the American culture at large, that we can be in our 50s and 60s and still engage in these kinds of activities. I didn't expect it.
Yeah, and it's true. And the thing to remember too is that when you're going through a transformation, you have to have a structure. You have to have a process to fall back on, because you're not strong enough in the beginning to hold yourself up. So you need the system to hold you up, and you need your team to hold you up. And as important is being able to understand how to establish boundaries, because as many people are going to be on your team will be people who are not on your team. I'm sure in your work with addicts as well, right? With addiction, you say the same thing. You can't be hanging around your old drinking buddies.
We always say stay with the winners. Stay with the winners. Hang with the winners. Because if you go back to the same, first thing is, if you go back to the same environment and you expect a different outcome, sorry, it's not going to be so. And the winners are winners for a reason. So stay with them. Hang around them.
Exactly. And I find that a lot of folks that reach out to me, in addition to saying, can you help me with my food, are then sharing and opening up and saying, I'm not really feeling very supported at home. I'm not feeling very supported at work, or whatever. My friends, make fun of me, and they call me the food Nazi, or just have one, nacho or whatever. It's not going to kill you. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to steel yourself mentally and understand that that's about those people and not about you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about carbs and protein. I'm going to jump over the autophagy, as you say, for a second, and get to insulin and cholesterol.
All right.
What do you have to say about that?
Jughead being bad on Periscope.
Oh, let him be. Let's see where he goes.
What's your beef, Jughead?
Yeah, what is your beef, Jughead? I'll happily bring it up here. But let's go to the cholesterol and insulin story.
I guess we have to have all sides.
Oh, hang on a second. Rain, look, Rain, if you're drinking like that where you're dry heaving every day, that's part of the dry heaving may be from reflux, or you might have Barrett's esophagus, gastritis. Yikes. Alcohol is damaging to the lining of the esophagus and stomach. And so, heartburn constantly is a bad sign. That can lead to esophageal cancer, particularly if you're a smoker. or if you have HPV and not know it, if you haven't had the HPV vaccine. So, you're describing some pretty serious stuff here, my friend. So you're going to want to do something about this. It's time. Go ahead. Let's go to cholesterol and
I'll throw up on Jughead.
let's go to cholesterol and insulin. You start.
Okay, I'll start, and then you start. I think cholesterol has gotten such a terrible rap, and the science, we have to look at the science of it. We can't just say it's bad because it shows up when cardiovascular disease shows up. Well, okay, that's true, but what else is showing up? What is your inflammation? And that's what we're beginning to know now, right? Is that the cholesterol is really important for cellular health and cellular repair and all. Right. It's there for a reason. And here's the other thing: our bodies make it. If we don't get enough, our bodies are going to make cholesterol. So why are we constantly trying to keep it as low as possible? Why don't we look at the other comorbid factors in heart disease, which is the inflammation part, which has to go to the insulin.
Right. So let me stay with cholesterol for a second and say the inflammation and the deposition. So you're talking about cholesterol that gets deposited in the lining of arteries, and that becomes inflammatory, and that's the inflammation we're talking about. Well, what are the conditions that let that happen? Insulin is one of the things you need, and certain apolipoproteins associated with that then oxidize the cholesterol, and it's oxidized cholesterol that gets put in the arteries. And so apolipoproteins, what is your HDL, what is your triglyceride, these things tend to have it looking like in certain biologies more important than, say, your LDL, which is something my profession has been very focused on. Now, full disclosure, I mean, I've seen so much good done with lowering LDL. I do believe that should still be part of the story. I know Vinny's always trying to get me off my statin, but I've been on a statin since I was in my 30s because my dad had terrible vascular disease and he had high LDL, low HDL, and I did not want to get that. And I only recently got my HDL and triglycerides under control by eliminating carbohydrates. Had not done that before, but I had smashed my LDL with a tiny bit of statin, and my calcium score, which is something you can all get if you're concerned about your risk of your heart disease and cholesterol metabolism, has been 0. And so I have felt so rewarded by that 0 by lowering the LDL. I'm like, I am not going to get off that. I mean, there seems to be a cause and effect there. I don't want to alter that, but I can do better by raising my HDL and lowering my triglycerides, which I could never do with medication, could never do with diet. And even when I was on like low calorie diet, it wasn't until I got rid of carbohydrates that did it. So talk to me.
So LDL is interesting because, there are 2 different size particles. There's the way my functional health guy talks about it. He says there's the big fluffy beach ball LDL, the particles, and then there's the little sticky, yucky golf ball size ones. And those are the problems.
Those are the ones that oxidize.
Yes. So when you have a cardiometabolic panel done, which you can have done, you can get that LDL broken down. And so even if your LDL is I always use air quotes high, the cardiometabolic panel will tell you what your percentage is of big fluffy versus little tiny sticky LDL, right? So a lot of us in the carnivore community, we do have people who have higher LDL. I am one of them. My LDL is just over, it's like 200.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you're one of those that now, again, that's a certain subset. So go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. But my LDL small particles it's not a problem.
Right.
I've done my cardiometabolic panel and it's fine. My triglycerides are 47. My HDL is 102.
Oh my God, that's the highest HDL. The only person I've seen HDL that high was my own mother, which I did not inherit from her. But high HDL is clearly protective. Every elderly person I've ever dealt with an LDL over 85 and particularly over 90, they get no vascular disease ever. I can say that as 100%. I've probably only seen 20 people with HDLs like that, but none of them, they all no vascular disease whatsoever.
Well, my C-reactive protein is 0.9.
So no inflammation. That's a sign of
no inflammation.
And then you don't have weight here like I do. That's not your thing. And so that's where it's fat.
What do you mean?
Fat in the midline. I mean, that's really not. That's not your thing. And that's what I have. And that's what's really associated with insulin resistance and inflammation.
Right. Exactly. And the waist to height ratio is interesting too. You know, the guidelines, it's now it's scientifically proven apparently that a smaller waistline is an indicator of overall general health because of what you just said, because of the insulin and whatnot.
Yeah. So adipose is associated with inflammation and insulin resistance. That is correct. Yeah. And by the way, little COVID aside, that's the group that does horribly with COVID. For whatever reason, whatever COVID is unlocking in people that have this inflammatory component, that's us. We get it. We get nailed by COVID. And by the way, let me ask you this. My whole life, I've noticed I do poorly with viruses. I'm just destroyed by them. And I'm thinking now that this cytokine storm, we've started to learn so much more about it in the last 4 months. I'm wondering if certain people are just prone to that every time they get a bad virus. How do you do with viruses?
I don't know the last time I was sick.
See,
I don't
Susan,
even know. Know.
Susan, how do you do with viruses?
Never get sick.
You walk right through them. How about Monica? How do you do with a sore throat?
I don't get them.
Don't get them.
I just don't get them.
And Susan gets destroyed by sore throats, and I
hate them.
I can somehow,
it means I'm sick.
I can somehow walk through that.
It means I need to stay in bed.
Yeah, these are different biologies.
Because I know I'll get over it.
So a sore throat I barely notice. I can just kind of keep going. A virus I literally can't get out of bed. Literally, I just destroyed. And I think that's this thing, whatever we're kind of getting into these days.
Yeah,
next
interesting.
Next time I get a virus, I'm going to try a little dexamethasone. See if that helps me out of it.
Can we pop back to the whole cholesterol thing? Triglycerides, cholesterol?
Yes, here we go, yes.
So one of the things, when you change your diet, now I did not go from standard American diet, which a lot of people call SAD, and I didn't go from that to carnivore, just like bam. I went NSNG, like Vinny says, no sugar, no grains.
Before you go on, I got to address one quick thing. We're going to talk about NSNG and changing the diet from SAD. Michelle Doucette, visceral fat, well, not visceral fat, it's midline fat, it's belly fat, so to speak, is genetic, and you change it by what we're talking about doing. Avoid seed oil, avoid carbohydrates, limit calorie. We'll talk about calorie in a few minutes, but go ahead. You're now on NSNG, Vinny's famous diet.
Right. So I went NSNG in 2013, and that was great. And then I fell off the wagon in 2015, and then I got fat and tired.
But so you've been thinking about this for a while, it sounds like, before this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was. So my point is that I didn't go from standard American diet to carnivore, just like one jump. I kind of went one step first with the no sugar, no grains. And that got used to that for quite a long time. And that was wonderful. And then from no sugar, no grains, then I went carnivore. And the interesting thing is when you tell people you're carnivore and they say, what do you eat? And you tell them, then that creates that cognitive dissonance, like, how I can't believe your heart is still beating. And this is where the education is so important, because you just said to me that HDL is clearly protective of heart disease, high HDL. My CRP is very, very low. My A1C is at 5. My triglycerides are 47, right? All those things are directly in conflict with what the kind of societal knowledge is about what meat does to our bodies. Right. And that is so important for people to really research.
And so you went from NSNG to carnivore.
Yeah.
And are you a modified carnivore? You take vegetables or just carnivore?
I'm not strict carnivore. Yeah. I do eggs, meat, fish, poultry, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and berries.
Great. No greens, no vegetables, huh?
Every now and again, if I'm at someone's house for dinner, and if I come to your house for dinner when I'm in California and Susan puts green vegetables on the table, I'm eating them. I'm going to eat them. I'm a good house guest.
So I'm pretty much where you are. That's pretty much what I'm doing. Although I avoid the yogurt and berry stuff, I really try.
You don't have starchy ones.
I really try to limit the starch and sugar everywhere. Because it's in everything. I get exposed to it no matter what I do. So I try. And I notice I feel better when I don't do that. And it's an easy diet to maintain. You're rarely hungry, which is the extraordinary thing.
So you're rarely hungry. And I don't waste money anymore. How many years have we wasted money buying vegetables and fruits, putting them in the refrigerator, pulling them out when they're rotten, and throwing them in the trash?
It's true. So, but I'll tell you what my problem is. This, let's go on to the calorie conversation a little bit. Is I'll overeat. I'll still overeat a little bit, and even high quality meat will convert to sugars through various mechanisms in your body, and being excess will have excess calorie that you'll put down as adipose and glucose. So how do you manage that?
I eat enough fat and enough protein that my satiety is not a problem. And that's really that's the key to managing your weight.
Yeah. So that's what Vinny keeps pounding on me about is the fat. And so at first I went, I'm telling this story just so people can look at the pitfalls that you could fall into, that I fell into. So I was like, okay, Vinny, I'll have more fat. I'll have more of that heavy cream in coffee that you told me is so great. And I essentially was having milkshakes 3 times a day. And, and he goes, and when I told him I was having trouble, he goes, how much what are you doing with that cream? Before I said it, before anything else. And I said, oh yeah, I'm all day long. And he said, okay, we'll stop that. Right. And it is better. Alexis, no, eggs are not horrible for a heart smart diet. Eggs, they're loosening the eggs. The restraints on egg have been markedly reduced.
Do 2 whites, 1 egg if you want to lose weight.
2 whites, 1 egg.
Yeah, so
whole egg. Vinny does 2 eggs, 5 yolks.
Yeah.
Depends what your goal is.
Well, but don't feed it to the yolks to your dogs.
Okay.
Because it gives them pancreatic cancer.
That's a good safety tip, Egon.
Yeah, KK, you're talking about endothelials hurt by fat. That is the story we've been telling you. Oxidized cholesterol, not the fat so much as the oxidized cholesterol. And then there are things that protect the HDL and the large LDL particles. There are things that protect against the oxidation of that cholesterol. So there you go. Yeah, it's hard for people to get. They can't get it. They are so we're so well. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about plant-based diets for people that want to do that. I don't discourage people from it. That does clearly have some vascular benefits. Clearly, particularly people that were on previously, sort of the SAD diet, as you say. Right. And I suspect most of that is because they reduce the kinds of carbohydrates they're taking. I suspect that's one of the reasons that they get good outcome, and the calories too, and the calories.
I have to hypothesize that is true, because there are certainly healthy people on vegetarian diets. Now, I was vegetarian in the past, and I was vegan in the past, and I will say that I honestly don't know how vegans get adequate amounts of protein and bioavailable protein, because plant protein is not as bioavailable as animal protein.
And so what do we want people to take in terms of protein? What is your plan with protein?
My plan is I shoot for a minimum of 1 gram per pound of my ideal body weight. And when I say my ideal body weight, praise Jesus, I'm at my ideal body weight for the first time in my entire adult life, right?
That's great.
So I shoot for about 115, 120 grams a day. But here's the contrast. Before I was enlightened about protein, I was getting about 50 grams a day. Mm. So it's no wonder that my fat loss had stalled and I wasn't building any muscle. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when I consult with these, and when I say consult loosely, because again, I'm not a professional in any fashion in this arena, when people ask me questions and I say, how much protein are you eating? I have a 200-pound guy, a guy whose ideal weight is 200 pounds, and he's eating 60 grams of protein a day. I'm like, dude, you need to triple it at least. Mm-hmm. And it's magic. On my Twitter, I keep seeing people message me saying, oh my God, what you told me is working. I just lost 5 pounds this last week. I was stalled for a year, and now I'm not stalled anymore.
And I would argue that it might need to be, or might have to think about modifying a little bit depending on what your goals are and what your exercise programs are. I mean, like if you're lifting heavy weights a lot, I think protein requirements go up a little bit. And if you're running a lot, your need for available, you have to really think about what you're going to be burning. I notice when I burn fats when I run, I do much better. So I try to get into kind of ketosis when I'm running, but you need a lot of calorie when you're running a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the RDA, as we know, the CRAP guideline is 0.4 grams per pound of body weight, which is half of what you really need to be optimal. Sorry about my son here. My light is in my face. But then, so I go, instead of going 0.8, I go 1 gram, because I strength train. And here's the thing. It's so hard to overeat protein. It is so hard to overeat protein to the point where it could become detrimental to your health, that it's like almost impossible to do it. You just get
I want to tell you, I'm pretty good at that.
but not to the point where it's going to, but not to the point where it's actually going to damage your body and become unhealthy.
Right. That's true.
And there is a big old myth out there about, oh, I don't want to eat too much protein because of my kidneys. Unless your kidneys are already compromised.
Right. That's an issue of trying to preserve kidney function in people with chronic kidney disease. That's a different thing. And people have debated whether or not the high protein could affect kidney. And there are doctors out there that believe it can. I'm obviously of the opinion that it does not. So, but that is still an issue of conversation. So know that Monica and I are just giving our opinions, our own experience. And again, it's biased by our own biology. What about autophagy?
Oh, sorry. Autophagy is awesome. It's like, you remember back in the day when Windows first came out and we were all learning about defrag. We're going to defrag my hard drive. That's basically what autophagy is. It's your body goes around and it cleans out damaged cells that are compromised, cells that are diseased or beginning to be diseased. It's a self-cleaning machine. It's amazing. And autophagy happens when you're in a fasted state, when you exercise. And it does not happen as often or as quickly or as efficiently when you are in a fed state and you do not exercise. Mm-hmm. So the sort of connecting the dots theory is, the more time you can spend in the autophagy process, the healthier your cells are. And the healthier your cells are, the less likely you are to develop cancer, diabetes, whatever, any other disease, because your body is constantly scanning and looking to get rid of those problem cells. The problem what we have in this country is that for how many years have we been told, eat 6 meals a day? You never let your body get into autophagy when you eat 6 meals a day. You just don't. And so nobody ever lets themselves get truly hungry. And so I feel like that is also a contributor, along with the seed oils and the carbs and the sugars.
And let me add a couple chapters to that, which is that adipose tissue is where we store bad things. we need to metabolize our own fat. And this is Kate Shanahan again, who says we never go long enough without eating to allow us to metabolize the fat we have. And that's really, it's the same phenomenon you're talking about. The other thing is, I'm big on this NAD story and cell senescence, and as you age, there's that issue too. And just I do the True Niagen thing. That has been sort of remarkable for me, but that's me.
I think the whole reason you had me on today was because you are determined to get me taking True Niagen.
Well, I sort of feel like everyone...
You want everybody to take it.
Yeah, I feel like you have to make your own conclusions about these things and look at the data and stuff. And I just know, I just had the sense it really worked for me. I just think it did.
Yeah.
But here we are. We're trying, and we're talking about optimizing things, optimizing our health, optimizing our condition, and and hopefully, there's a lot of confusion in this country between wellness and and disease prevention, frankly, because we think, all the stuff Monica and I are talking about today should at least reduce certain disease states. For instance, having excess adipose puts you at risk for breast cancer, for sure. And there's lots of things that we are going to reduce the risk for by being well, but not eliminate the risk for it. I think there's confusion out there. If you really want to start talking about reducing risk of real disease, get your genetic test done. Go to color.com. I don't have an association with this group, but I've done their testing. I've had my patients do it, and they will give you the 30 most common risk factors for cancer, like BRCA type genes, that including BRCA, but that sort of thing. And if you're positive for any of those things, that will change how your doctor will screen you for cancer, and that will prevent disease. So there's other things in disease prevention than wellness. Don't get too focused on wellness is going to solve all your problems. And obviously, if you're a smoker and a drinker, well, you got a lot of room for improvement right there, where wellness really could reduce your risk of disease. But if you're an otherwise healthy person and you're optimizing, like what Monica and I are talking about, yeah, it should help you, but don't confuse it with disease prevention so much. Does that sound okay? Obviously, vascular disease is one of those things that might be prevented by what we're saying here, but talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah.
That sound about right?
I everything you say sounds about right to me because I've been watching you and listening to you for, I don't even want to say how many years, like since the Loveline days, and you're always level-headed, and you just always make sense, and that's why I think you're so credible. And
well, I've had this. See, I had this crazy amount of experience medically. I was a really, really serious workaholic. Now I'm like a part-time workaholic. And I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would struggle to get home at 10 at night. And I would sometimes see 60, 80 people in a day with really sick stuff. And I saw it in the psychiatric hospital. I saw it in the addiction unit. I saw it in medical, both outpatient and inpatient. And one thing I just realized, I offered myself up to go to New York to work in the ICUs, and they just never called me. And I realized that they're not training the younger physicians to take care of intensive care patients, and I did tons of that. So because of all this broad experience that frankly young physicians aren't getting, they're not seeing it in the psychiatric setting, in the acute setting, and it's all been sort of siloed now. You're either an outpatient, you're an inpatient, you're working in a psychiatric hospital, or you're working in a medical hospital. I got to see all of it. And as a result, I essentially saw everything, and it affects my opinions, it affects my knowledge about these things we're talking about today, and it sort of, I don't know, and I want to give it back because I do have this experience, it's extraordinary thing, and I want to just give back from what I've learned. So that's why we're having these conversations.
You know what you just reminded me of is, when you were saying that, it reminded me of, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell that talks about mastery takes 10,000 hours, minimum 10,000 hours. And
Yeah.
when you have that depth and breadth of experience,
Yeah.
then you bring that everywhere you are, you bring it. It
Right.
comes to bear.
So
right?
I had the 10,000 hours in all those different areas. That's the
Right.
craziness. And I had a lot more too. And so I sort of seen everything. And to be fair, it might make me a little biased in certain things where I need to update my opinions based on currently available knowledge. And so I have to watch it. I have to really make sure I keep up on things to make sure that my opinions don't become outdated, frankly, because you can let that happen too. Yeah, we've all seen that, old-time physicians that have their ways about doing things. I don't want to be that guy. I see how that happens. I'm not going to be that guy.
And there are a lot of physicians, thank God, that are like you, that have that mindset of, when I see new data, I need to revise my position, which is great. But there's also a tremendous number, and I'm sure it's very political. If you talk to Vinny, he'll tell you all that stuff, who are just entrenched and are just not even curious about these patient outcomes. When you have patients that are literally reversing their disease using nothing but their dietary choices, and physicians aren't even curious, to me, that is intellectual dishonesty. And
I agree. And I would argue, I think where that comes from is, more than anything, the other thing we're not doing a lot with our physicians is we're not giving them a good scientific training before they go to their clinical stuff. They're not good scientists. And if you're a good scientist, you're always objective, you're always updating, you're always skeptical, you're always looking, wondering, quandering, fearful that your current set of assumptions are inaccurate. So if you don't have that, you can get hubristic really, really easily.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, MDs don't get any education on food or nutrition. Is that correct?
You have to. You get a few lectures, but nothing deep. And I'm sure I can barely remember what I got. And you have to go seek it out. You have to go really seek it out. But it's in the zeitgeist. It's people are thinking about it, working on it. So it's a lot more present than it was when I was a young physician. But it's still very dogmatic. There's still a lot of dogma around it, and so they have to really. I mean, that's why I like Peter Attia. He's really thoughtful, and for a surgeon, to be that scientifically thoughtful is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Monica,
the mind is important.
Oh my God, yes. And that's the other thing, is they don't get the psychiatric part, and that creeps into everything. Trust me, it's always lurking around, the psychological piece. Justin, yes, beer is high carbohydrate and not good for diabetics, especially not good for. Let's see what else you guys are asking about. 1 gram protein per ideal body weight, or lean body weight. Sometimes we
Lean
call
body
that.
weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your guys' questions here. I don't see too much. So, Monica, thank you. Did we cover pretty much everything you and I said we were going to cover? I think we did.
We did. We kind
Yeah.
of did. Yeah. We didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't really get so much to the mindset part of it and how
Oh,
important that is.
go.
But,
Please do
we
some more.
can.
I love that stuff. Do a little more. Tell me.
There's my fat pictures again. Susan put up.
Well, she's just talking about motivation and mindset. Well,
Right.
give me because you did sort of give us your basic philosophy. Is there a deeper structure to that? Is that what you want to talk about?
It's the connection between your body and your mind, and what happens to you when you push your body is that you push your mind as well. And so this simultaneous pushing, pulling, because without getting mentally tough, you're never going to stay with any program. And and I don't care if you're talking about fitness or anything, whatever it is, business, goals, personal, whatever, relationship, you've got to develop mental toughness. And that's what physically training your body helps you to do. So then you're able to better take on the other challenges in your life. That's an ancillary benefit that we never think about. We think, oh, I want my ass to be smaller. Oh, I want my belly fat to be gone. That's great. That's awesome. But one of those benefits of pushing your body is that you are going to expand and grow your mind, and you're going to be more powerful personally and in the world.
What's really interesting is, I've been, sort of I wouldn't say I'm a gym rat, but I've been around gym since I was 14 years of age. And I noticed probably when I was in medical school, I started like really seeing this more clearly, that even some of these guys that were just bonehead, working out types, they all seem to be able to excel, even if they had no training, or they always, sometimes they would just seem to be doing nothing, but I'd run into them years later and they'd all be really doing interesting stuff. There's something about working out, half hour a day that is a kind of a structure that somehow really compels people forward. It's almost like in the happiness literature when they'll say, what's the one thing you should do to start when people need to be happy? And they'll usually say, make your bed. And I think that's the same kind of a thing. It's just this structure of pushing something every day makes it easy to push in other domains as well, I suppose.
It does. And I call it, with my clients, I call it an upward power spiral. I've been using that term for years. And it's the concept that we're always in motion. We're always either improving or we are in a state of entropy. And so everything that you do, every personal thing that you do that improves your life, then begets and gives you the confidence and the energy to do the next good thing for yourself. Just like, again, you're with the addiction thing, how easily it is to get into a spiral. For a person in recovery to get into a downward spiral,
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can get into a downward spiral with any behavior or any way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's when you create your upward power spiral by doing things every day, consistently, then you create that confidence in yourself, you create that momentum, and that begets one more good thing. And then you're going to eat a little better, and then you're going to think a little better, and then you're going to train a little better. And it's consistency is the magic.
I'm just thinking about, do you ever listen to the show Adam and I Do? Adam Carolla?
I do. I love
You heard him talk about showers, cold showers?
Oh God. Yes. I did cold showers for a while and it was hell on earth.
I got to tell you, I do it now every day and I'm just used to it. I can tolerate it so much better. And that's the kind of thing he's talking about, is if you can force yourself into discomfort, you can learn to tolerate a lot more things. And I think he's onto something.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because you prove to yourself that you can do something difficult. And being soft, mentally and physically soft, is the worst thing that we can be as individuals and as a society.
Well, what's interesting, I've noticed a lot more Navy SEAL testimonials out there these days, books by Navy SEALs, and how do people get toughness?
Yeah.
And I think this is a time when that might be a very pertinent thing for people to pay attention to.
Toughness is important. It's so important to have grit and to have resilience.
Yeah. Oh, well, you just added two more things. You want to talk about grit and resilience? So those are two different topics. You want to talk about them?
I know. Well, of course I want to talk about them.
Go ahead.
I love these conversations because this is the magic of life, is sharing these kind of ideas. And, to me, grit is, I don't know. I mean, you'll have to give me your nuance between grit and resilience, because I think they're really.
I think they're very different. Grit is being able to persevere and tolerate. Resilience is being able to, tolerate and come back and deal with failure and disappointment. It's very different than grit, I think. Grit is the moving forward. Grit to me is the moving forward part, that uncomfortably moving forward, and consistent persistence. And resilience is being able to adapt. Let's put it that way.
Okay, adaptation is wonderful. That's a really great point, and a really good point of nuance. And that's the other reason I like you too so much, is not just because of your fabulous white hair, but because of your attachment and affinity for nuance in conversation. And so what I would say to that is, when I work with clients and they feel really like something happened, they feel down, they feel whatever. One of the ways that anyone who's listening can be more resilient, and we forget this is really important, is to go back in your life, in your mind, and remember, when was another time when you had the same situation, when you had the same feeling, when you had to come back from something. What was it, and how did you do it? Because we forget how much we've come back from.
That's a good idea. That's a great point.
We forget how strong we are. We forget all the skills and resources we have, because when we get into a negative or a depressed state, this is what happens, right?
I don't think I could do that by myself. I'm doing it in my mind as I hear you talk, because you're prompting me. You're sort of motivating me to do that. I'm not sure I could do that by myself.
Well, that's why people talk to coaches, is because we think about these things, and it's important to remember that life is cyclical and situations are cyclical. So it may be that you experience, let's say we have a lot of people right now who are out of work, right? So was there a time in your life before when you were either out of work or you had another loss? Because that's the bigger concept, right? Is the loss. It's not just that you're out of work. It's that you've lost a part of yourself.
Many experiences like that. But strangely, I'm thinking back to like high school and stuff, when I really, had not a lot of personal resources and had to, for the first time, reach in and move forward.
Yeah. And you have within you a well of resources, but so many times we put the lid on it because we don't really need it, and it's really doesn't. And then when we need it, we forget it's there. And
you're
so
right.
sometimes you have to just go back and go, look, I've come through worse. I've done worse.
And resilience is sort of, there's a certain amount of constitutional quality to resilience, but it's also something that can be developed. And resilience is developed by going through adversity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And having some support, and knowing where to look for support, and being okay looking for support.
I got to wrap this all up because I know Susan's got to do a show. Hey, I need a little coaching up. I'm trying to put together a Patreon page or something where I can, and I'm looking at you guys on chat. You can help me with this. Maybe something I can put behind a paywall where I could do sort of Zoom groups or private chats or something that would be that I could really spend my time, that'd be worth your while, be worth my while, sort of, if there are things you think you would like above and beyond what we're already doing, put it here in the chat. I'd like to at least give me, can't hear you.
If you have great results with Patreon, email us your suggestions. Go to drg.com/contact, and also sign up for the email list, because
and Marissa, you're saying I need your opinion. I sound desperate. And if I could set up a smaller situation, I could give individual kinds of.
Well, you now have a Cameo, 10-minute Cameo available on Cameo.
And Terry Dean says, talk to Duncan Trussell. Duncan Trussell is who told me to do this. Duncan Trussell, I was talking to him yesterday, and he said, you need to do this. I was like, okay, let me think about it.
So you can also find Drew on Cameo if you want to.
James, exclusive Q&A type thing is what I'm talking about. Not an OnlyFans. Not an OnlyFans. That's funny. but something where I can be of use to people and on a regular basis do something once a week or something. Coach, any ideas?
Sounds really fun, actually, because discussion, like that's one of the things that is my superpower is facilitating discussions, because that is where the magic happens, in that not only letting people express and be heard, but the facilitation of that conversation is where all the cross-pollination of ideas happens, and that's where people really see results and feel support. I love it. I think I should do one too. It sounds fun.
Yeah, it does sound like something would work for your stuff too. James, yes, Duncan Trussell is enlightened, and I. By the way, if you want to see him and I in our rarest
he just
form,
called you up and said, "Hey, you need to make money. Do this page."
No, I called him for some reason. I can't remember why. I wanted to, because he and I are in this thing called the Midnight Gospel. It's on Netflix. Please watch the Midnight Gospel. The very first episode is him and I in this cartoon, and you want to hear him and I in rare form.
I thought he was going to have you do a cartoon of one of your podcasts.
There it is. Oh, good job.
I know. Look at that.
You thought, what's this now? You thought.
I thought you were going to talk about maybe turning.
He didn't recommend that. He was busy. He was something else. He had some other ideas, but I got to leave that to him.
He's a great guy.
I don't know what Elise and Key is, Tom Cigar. I don't know what that is. When is the next show? We will be in here tomorrow. We have the great Tyrus in here with us tomorrow. Yes, GSR Savage. It is a cartoon, and it is amazing. It is amazing. Thank you. Gosh, some of you guys are weird colors in here. Nick Snell. It was a good Midnight Gospel. The first episode and the last episode are crazy.
Also, I need to plug my
good.
show.
All right, go ahead.
So tonight we have a
calling out
with Susan Pinsky with a prediction show, as you requested, Drew. You were the one that called this.
I said people in this uncertain time would like to hear these guys.
So
make them feel a little more in control.
We have Kyle Thomas. He's an astrologist, and he does everything by the stars. Rebecca Fearing, who's a really psychic medium. And she'll be in the studio. Khalees Simone is going to be zooming in from Australia. And Jennifer Schaefer, she's also a local psychic who I work with, but she just did a little pre-tape, so we're going to compare notes and talk about
looks great in these pictures.
Lots of fun stuff like, will we have a football season? Or when will the COVID-19 be over? Who's going to win the election? So,
Ashley Marie, I am concerned about the California cases, but I'm not alarmed. I predicted an uptick 3 weeks ago. There had to be an uptick. I mean, if there wasn't an uptick, the lockdown was a sham, right? There was no reason. If there is not an uptick after tens of thousands of people in the street screaming with their mouths open without masks, and we do not have an uptick in cases, then we should never have locked down. Okay, so the lockdown is looking like it might have been an okay thing, and we're now seeing an uptick, and we are going to contain that. Now, the next 2 weeks are going to tell if we're able to do that. Yeah, it could spiral, could get out of control a bit.
Yeah, my psychics might be able to tell you.
I don't think. No, I'm going to be at KTK at.
I know you're not going to be.
Tonight on Fox 11, we have the great Catherine Barger. If those of you are local Los Angeles type, she's the head of the.
It's so funny because when Drew's around, he always gets a psychic reading. So I try to do it while he's at work.
And try it out, Tom Cigar. Try it out.
Wait, let me put the banner up. Let me see. This has music in it, though. Sorry about that.
Okay, but Alex is not on tonight. I'm going to be in with the Marla
Oh, really?
Tellas. Yeah. And
I love Alex.
Yes, he does a good job.
He's so perky.
Okay, so that's all that stuff. Where should people find you, Monica?
Well, Twitter is my social media boyfriend. That's where I am most of the time.
And we appreciate all your tweets for us.
Yes, we do.
Oh, I love you guys.
Monica shares our Periscope all the time, and I love that.
Thank you for that.
Well, so everybody on Periscope, share it.
You're welcome. I go to bat for you guys too. I get my share of
you got to
pushback on that, right?
That was fun. Wasn't that
fun?
Oh
yeah. I get them every day, but whatever, it's fine. No big deal. Anyway, so I have one last question to ask you, since we're talking about astrology. So you and I are both Virgos, Drew.
Oh.
Okay. Are you a typical Virgo?
I don't. You mean like fastidious and that kind of thing? The only thing I think sensitive, yes. Fastidious, yes. And I read somewhere once that Virgos have their own sense of order. In other words, they're the people that have desks that are a freaking mess, but nobody can touch it because we know where everything is. That's me.
Yeah, he is very fastidious. His closet, it's
It's not
He
like
has a gay man's closet. Let's just put it that way.
We're twins because my desk looks like a tornado went through, and my closet is also of a gay man. But for 20 years, I was a professional organizer and productivity consultant.
what haven't you done?
You would
That's
hate
how-
my closet.
What else? What else is hiding in your past?
I'm not sure we have enough time for that. That's another show.
Wow.
I know a lot of people during the lockdown were like cleaning closets and doing all that. I did very little.
Tom Cigar, I
I'm the
love,
opposite.
I
I'm a
love,
Capricorn.
I really do appreciate all the your mom's house stuff you are putting on in the chat room. It
I
makes
don't
me
have the
smile.
latest banner. We're on like episode 70. I'm a little behind on promoting the Your Mom's House.
Well, you
stuff.
can find Susan on Where Your Mom's At next week.
Yeah,
It'll
I'm
be
going
up
to
next
do
week.
it this week.
Be careful.
Okay,
and
my
so,
dinner's
Monica,
here.
why don't you go ahead and answer that, and I'll finish up with Monica here. Go ahead, answer the.
Okay, well, I'm going to
Okay.
have to shut this down. So.
No, you're not. Monica, what were you trained in? What's your original training in?
I have no original training at all. Actually, I started a business in 1998, organizing and helping people be more productive,
Wow.
and I did that for 20 years.
Wow.
And that is, talk about Virgo, right?
Mm.
I'm actually organizing people's lives for them. And then I shifted to the coaching a couple of years ago because the transformation part, that was so gratifying, was the transformation part of moving someone from a state of complete chaos in their life to being where they feel more powerful and in control.
Nice.
That was the great part. And that's what coaching allows me to do.
Yeah, in individual, that one-to-one change is very, very important in
It is.
contributing. Well,
It is.
Monica, now I do have to wrap this up. We got to get Susan out of here. So thank you for joining us.
Oh,
folks.
it's okay. You
Monica,
guys can
Monica
talk all
Riki.
day if you want.
All right,
You can just-
CCI.
We'll just move Monica on over into my show, and she can get a psychic
There you
reading.
go.
on
The
top.
Tom Cigar, I'm glad the podcast helped you during the pandemic.
We are going
You
to take
have-
calls tonight too, but
You have made me laugh today by just putting all the Your Mom's House aphorisms up there. You put your glass in and sake souffle and all that great stuff that we do on Your Mom's House. So check it out. That's at the Dr. After Dark podcast, a very different kind of a thing. And Monica, as always, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yes, sir. Love you guys. See ya.
Thank you. Love you too. And the rest of us, we will be back tomorrow with the great Tyrus. We'll see you then.
Everybody give a shout out to Monica Ricky on Twitter.
There you go.
Oh, there's the dog. The dog is barking.